your martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
Tall. I know Kung Fu.
You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
Hey guys, it's time for a new release. A new release movie. Yeah. Another martial arts film that just recently came out. From 1984. Yeah, what time? What year is it?
2021 release from 1984.
Yeah,
Those are some words.
Yes, we're doing a new release. Technically, we're not incorrect about that. But we'll by the next episode, you'll know what this month's theme is. And it's October, so I think it's pretty obvious. But yeah, we are talking about New York Ninja today.
New York Ninja.
Yeah. Zero, how did you discover this? Word of mouth, I'm assuming, right?
Right. Well, it played, at Beyond Fest, the world premiere, actually. And, we got a chance to watch it, so now we're talking about it. So, yeah, thanks to Ted Gagan for that one.
Yeah. Well, all the kudos to them. And all the kudos to Vinegar Syndrome for reviving this, restoring it from the abscess of, lost films, I guess, right? And I guess there's a lot of things that we could talk about regarding this film. And the making of or remaking of the film. Because, like we said, this movie was originally shot in the 80s, and it wasn't released until basically now. It's kind of astonishing or kind of amazing that they were able to do it at all. And thankfully, this was coupled with a documentary that we happened to watch that basically gave us a lot of information, like good information, about the effort that went into trying to recreate this film. Thankfully, they all had all the film negatives, but it was all visual that they kept. All the audio was unfortunately lost. So what ended up happening is that we got a whole bunch of ADR to dub in all the sound in the movie. So that's why we have some very iconic voices in the movie, right? I guess you can speak to that a little bit.
We've never covered a Don the Dragon Wilson film before. We are a martial arts podcast.
Yeah.
We dropped the ball on that. I've been wanting to for a while. Just he hasn't fit into any of our themes or any of our
anniversaries,
our dates, anniversaries. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. But we have also covered Cynthia Rothrock, and she is in the film as well.
Right.
I believe they're the only two martial artists, and then the rest are various voiceover actors.
Renee Quigley's in the movie. I was like, what? Why are we covering this movie, Zero? Like, why is it important to talk about, or why did we think it was good entertainment, good candidate for our show? It borders on so bad it's good.
We're gonna have a baby.
Oh my God.
In a very cheesy, very campy kind of way. It's almost along the lines of like the kind of things that you and I like, right? We've said this many times in the show. Out like behind the scenes, as much as we love martial arts movies, we're also big So Bad's Good movie fans. We eat that shit up. And this one,
I'm a very big fan of like incompetent filmmaking.
Yeah.
Not to say that's what's going on here, but I love an incompetent film when it poorly comes together and you just unfortunately have to laugh at it. It's obviously not the director's intent.
Right.
But we get enjoyment out of it. So yes. I think that is the positive to that one.
That's one thing I like about this movie. It's you can definitely see and feel the budgetary restraints, and given also given the fact that it's from the 80s. There's definitely a lot of limitations there, but I do appreciate the film, like in a very campy way, like I said before. I think you said it before. It's almost on the same caliber as Miami Connection. I think you said it. I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, I did say that. It feels like it's along those lines where similarly Miami Connection was lost and then it got found and then, it gained a cult status and all that stuff because of how cheesy the dialogue was and how silly some of those things were and how, I guess, amateurish the martial arts can be on screen. Not that the actors were amateurs themselves. It's just that when it comes to on-screen fighting, there is a competency to that.
Right.
And there is a skill level to that. And that comes across in that film. And it feels like that's what's going on here. Not to say that like John Liu, the original director, was a bad martial artist. It's just that like when it came to how he was portraying it on camera, it feels like, components are missing, maybe budget is missing because it comes across as very, very simple. But there's like a silly and cheesy charm to it.
Where there's give and take between comparing these two. Miami Connection, it's... Well, let's start with today's movie, New York Ninja, whose title is just amazing. I love that title. John Liu, the star of the movie, the star, director, writer, producer, everything, action choreographer of the movie. This guy, he wore a lot of hats. They said that a lot in the documentary, and they say it like, that's obviously very impressive, to be able to manage all that. But it's like, you can definitely see where he's stretched thin because, when you watch the fight scenes, they're simple. They are very, very simple, but not in terms of not entirely because of the choreography, which it is, but it's simple in the fact that camera work is not interesting, or it's a very static. It's very one dimensional. The editing is very one dimensional, and it literally looks like they did one take of all the action scenes and like, all right. Time to move on. We don't have a permit to film in Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we always complain, at least with some of the fight scenes. It's like, go wider. We want to see the fights. We want to see what's going on. We want to see the actors performing it. And in this movie, they do it too much. They go too wide, and then they stay there. And it's just that one static shot of him beating up people all around him. Are similar complaints of you see people waiting their turn. They're just like in the background, like, okay, is it my turn? When's my cue? When's my cue? And go. Yep,
I love it. I love that shit. No,
I don't like that in like a more a more higher budgeted film where there's no excuse for that. But when it comes to 80s schlocky, campy martial arts films, I eat that stuff up.
Crediting John Liu a little bit because he does have a storied career prior to coming to New York to film this movie. Apparently, he's become a recluse ever since more recent. They couldn't get him to do much to like reprise his role or do anything outside of like giving very silent acquiescence to be like, do whatever you want with this movie. Who cares? Which is kind of a shame because the guy's still alive as the timing of this recording. So that's kind of interesting. But apparently back in the good old days, a lot of his films came to New York, or were filmed in New York, but he was filming in Hong Kong. This Taiwanese actor, obviously it wasn't a lot of movies. Like none of them made it to like the Shaw Brothers Golden Harvest caliber. So he's in a lot of like really low budget films. So I don't know, like watching that documentary, and this is coming from a guy who didn't watch a lot of his movies. I think I've seen Invincible Armor before, and I didn't even know that he was in it. There's a level of expectation that you set when you watch like that kind of martial arts choreography, like what you're expecting from out of Hong Kong, even if it is lower budget. And then here, like, he definitely is like a one step down. I thought that he'd be able to take it, you know, what he was capable of in like Hong Kong production and bring it over here, because like, oh, the budgets are just about the same, but I guess there's a lot more red tape because now you're working with like American film productions, even if it is lower budget, right?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is just because he has the experience of working on a Hong Kong, film doesn't mean he can take over the crew and that knowledge, because it's very evident when you see him fight the American extras. I'm sure they have some sort of acrobatic skills, but they are very, very, very limited.
Yes.
And that's kind of one of the, I mean, we're fight fans. That's one of the disappointing things when we look for fights, is when you could see that the stuntmen and the performers are not up to a certain caliber. But as I've said before, this is kind of a campy, cheesy 80s film. So that kind of makes it okay.
Right. Well, let's go back to that. Circling back to everything we said, I was trying to say before. I don't think it's nearly as good as Miami Connection in terms of like the so bad it's good quality. But that's my own opinion. I know you're not even a fan of Miami Connection, even on that level.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't want this to be a Miami Connection comparison episode.
That's not fair. Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. Like, I can't get into Miami Connection. I think there's funny moments of it. Like, I like this one much better. I thought this was just much more enjoyable overall, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the laughs aren't as the unintentional laughs aren't as well paced. It's unintentional, right? So it's unpredictable. But whereas Miami Connection, it's like there's like 20% laughing, 80% cringing, but like you get to start to laugh at how much you're getting uncomfortable with how bad these scenes are. Whereas this movie, like, there's actually moments where it just kind of just like a lull, and this is kind of weird because I don't think I've seen a movie, at least on the top of my head, where I am watching the byproduct of a recreation versus the original format or original version of it. And that's because the original version's lost to the ages. It's not a thing. So I am curious to see what the original version would have been. Would it have been just as cheesy and campy? Because obviously what they tried to do, and Vinegar Syndrome, I mean, they tried so hard to do was recapture the same kind of filmmaking technique and tone and everything. Basically just recreate the movie to the best of their knowledge, using just reading lips and trying to piece together a story.
Right.
But that's hard.
The skill and talent to just put all that together. Oh man, that must have been a very, very painstaking process.
Absolutely. So it's weird. Like, I am critiquing a recreation rather than the original product. So I think the lulls in the movie where it slows down, I'm wondering how much of that is wondering how much of that could have been just like cut out in the movie entirely, because obviously the movie it gets really slow, especially when you get to like the 2/3 mark. There isn't much laughing, there isn't much fighting. Like, there's a period of time where there isn't much of anything at all that's really happening. And I feel like they could have just like trimmed down some scenes and made the movie a little bit more concise. And I guess that would be more of a small minor critique I would have for the people recreating the film, because obviously we don't know what the original version would have been.
Yeah, there's I'm sure there was a lot of footage that they were just like nope, and trying to piece it together, and everything that we're seeing now is what they felt was absolutely necessary.
Yeah,
at least to make a competent plot, right? Because as we said, or as you said, sure, yes, there is a lull in like the 2/3 mark, but it is kind of moving the story along. It's just we're not getting those laughs again, like you mentioned.
You know what I'm gonna do to you. You know what I'm gonna do to you now, right? You said story, you said plot. You got to do it now. Explain it.
Damn it!
I know you're gonna do it to me.
Yeah, damn it. John Liu's wife is murdered after
broad daylight, New York.
In broad daylight. stabbed in the stomach. Oh, and she's pregnant, mind you. So not really big spoiler. This happens all like in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
She's murdered after witnessing a woman being abducted. And what we also find out is there is a man who is abducting women all over New York City for some sort of sex trafficking ring. And then in addition to that, John Liu is obviously very upset, so he decides to take matters into his own hand. He becomes a vigilante and he dons a ninja outfit in order to deliver justice or get revenge or befriend children, maybe all of the above.
You said that in the most like heroic way possible. His wife died, so he becomes a ninja. That's basically it. Oh my God, it's the same premise as Scott Adkins' Ninja. Practically.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Ninja 2 at least. Yeah, but it's silly because obviously it takes place in New York. And yeah, there's a couple fights in the movie. I wouldn't say that they're very well paced because, I mean, let's not mince words. Let's not beat around the bush. The fight quality is not that good. But they're at a certain point in the movie, like around the third of the movie in, they're just like nonstop fighting. It's like a scene's over and then here's another fight. Scene's over and then here's another fight.
It feels like it's mid-loaded with fights. Yeah. All the fights kind of happen in the middle. So it's just like a fight sandwich, I guess.
Right. There's little good things throughout it. I can't name all of them because there isn't that much. There's some good stunt work here and there. Like John Liu. It seems like he had a body double for certain scenes. Obviously they had a Caucasian guy, donning the ninja outfit in certain shots. But I'm assuming that because it's lower budget, they just did it for time. It's easier.
Yeah, because he needs to be behind the camera directing, but he also needs to be in front of the camera certain times. So I guess we can understand why you need a double for that.
Right. I think if I remember correctly, certain action scenes, it was John didn't do all of them, or at least some stunt work, I imagine. But I completely understand that. Like if he is hurt, all of production is just stopped. Every component of production has to stop. So that's completely understandable. But at the same time, I think that is actually him. I think they even said in the documentary that holding onto a wire, a rope that is attached to the back of a car as it's being dragged, the ninja's being dragged on the asphalt. And the only reason why this is even worth mentioning is that the only thing that's beneath him is just a piece of cardboard. They're very thin
crazy
sheet of
things
cardboard.
People will do for some simple stunts.
Yeah.
So Will, I guess our hero is only as good as our villain. What did you think of the plutonium killer?
I don't know who the performer is, but I know the voice actor, Michael Berryman. And you'll see him in a lot of like other Vinegar Syndrome films. I only don't have a very limited.
I forget where I've seen it from, but he has that kind of he has a very, very distinct face, head shape.
Head shape.
A lot. He was a villain in a lot of 80s movies, from what I can remember.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I'm blanking on them too. But yeah, Michael Berryman, he does the voice of the villain, and I think he does a great job. Because some voices, I'm like, oh, you can clearly tell it's like doesn't entirely match the face, or like you can not 100%. It's not completely idiosyncratic. But like for Michael Berryman, like, oh, that feels like it literally came out of that actor's mouth. But enough of that. The voice acting. Let's talk about his I guess special ability.
I don't even understand his whole gimmick.
He's radioactive. He has radioactive hands, and he has orgasms throughout the whole movie that make him more radioactive. He can touch people with his radioactive hands and make them and burn them to death. There's an entire scene in a car where he's not having sex because that would, I don't think they're aligned properly. I think he's just he's dry humping his girlfriend's backside, and he kills her by touching her back, and then she just burns to death. And while he's doing all this, he's just like having an O face on screen. Oh! I think I just perfectly summarized the villain right there.
Yeah, I don't understand, because we understand in a throwaway line that he was doused with radiation or something like that.
Yeah.
But the fact that when we first see him, his first introductory scene is him opening up, I don't know, a cooler filled with, I don't know.
Ecto cooler.
Ectoplasm. Green glow flashing on his face, and him just becoming sexually aroused by, I don't know.
I don't think that was what it's supposed to be. But yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the scene is telling the audience. It never becomes clear what is going on. What is sexually exciting him? Is he getting sexually excited, or is this actor just really, really overdoing it?
He's just absorbing the radiation like an X-Men. I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, opposite him is John Liu, who's I think it's a combination of John Liu, who I'm assuming like didn't really speak much English. I'm assuming, and like so he has to like do a lot of physical emoting on screen, but then like obviously Don the Dragon Wilson who does the voice for him, does speak perfect English. So it's just like, but Don's also, he himself has said that he's never done a voiceover for someone else before. So, it's out of his element. So he's like also kind of hamming it up a little bit, like knowingly. So this character in general is just like really over the top in certain scenes. He's just, man, there's like the amount of times where he just screams into the air and just like balls his fist. There's a moment where he's like, there's two pillars and he just keeps on like ramming his shoulder into them. He's back like and forth.
Ping-ponging back and forth between them. Very questionable acting decision, but I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah. But yeah, like the performances across the board are pretty like over the top. Sometimes it's a little dull, but I can't really fault them for that. I think that's perfectly fine. But yeah, let's talk about the action on a more general level. I don't think I've seen another movie where another martial arts movie where there's a chase scene on roller skates, or the main character is on roller skates.
I think I know two of them. There's another ninja
I think we covered one. I think we at least covered one. But like, okay, let me rephrase that. He's on, the main character is fighting on roller skates, but it looks stupid. How about that? It does not look.
I think fighting on those traditional 80s roller skates, not roller blades, not inline, the four wheels in a car formation. Yeah, that's hard to pull off. That looks very, very silly. So, and at times he's not even on the roller skates.
Yeah.
And in some scenes, like he does a flip over a car, then a flip over a stuntman, but then you see he's just clearly like walking on the street.
Yeah. And then in the next shot, he's back on his roller skates. Yeah. Okay. How do we define John Liu's like fighting style in the movie? He's very kick oriented, I guess. Right. He does a lot of like. They're okay. They're like kind of fancy kicks. He's very good with his balance. You'll notice in a lot of his choreography. Like he doesn't do a lot of like heavy acrobatic work. He'll just kind of like stand in one place and then just deliver a flurry of slow kicks, daintily hitting you from basically the same two angles. I mean, that's my observation of his fight style. But again, I get it. They're working with what they have, because they don't have much time to film something a little bit more complicated. So yeah, I'm in that sense, I'm a little bit forgiving. I do commend it for the, like if I really like sit myself down and consider all the factors, all the constraints that they have to work with. It's fine. It's not good martial arts, or it's not good filmmaking, but I think the martial arts choreography is like it. There's like a spark of like potential there if they had a little bit more to work with. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, when you have a better budget, when you have a better cinematographer, you can make any choreography kind of work, right?
Yeah.
I think the only, not the only, like the main standout fight for me was when he fights a guy with a disgusting rat tail who he puts in his mouth.
Yeah.
And he does drunken sword fighting
out
of nowhere. They had to ad-lib that line in because I'm sure they didn't understand what they had, because the guy is really just like moving all around. I mean, it does look like he's drunkenly sword fighting, and it really does come out of nowhere. So that was probably one of the most interesting things, because I can't recall that in another movie.
I don't think so.
Boxing before, not drunken sword fighting though.
I can't recall, but I mean, I've never seen a fight scene end the way it does, which it kind of is explained in a throwaway line. John Liu just taps him with his own weapon. I forgot what weapon he's using. Another sharp object. Oh yeah, he's using a wakizashi, which is like a short Japanese sword. But it just grazes the guy with the rat tail, and then they say "Oh, I'm dead." The fight's over. Something along those lines.
He doesn't do that. But
if I remember, it just ends abruptly. Oh, okay, I guess that's over. And then towards the end, obviously he has to take on the final boss. Surprisingly, the best edited fight scene in the whole movie, especially given that the main character, the main villain, is an older gentleman. Doesn't seem like he knows actual on-screen choreography or martial arts, so they're giving him very simple choreography. But the editing and camera work kind of make up for it. It's interesting that they put more of their effort into this last fight scene. So, yeah, again, there's potential there.
Yeah.
Some key takeaways that I want to talk about before we wrap this up. The score is fucking phenomenal for this movie. Yeah, they did a fantastic job.
Right. Voyager, I believe the name of the band is. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where, synthwave is kind of popular now.
Well, it's appropriate. It's an 80s movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting to hear that in the documentary, they took some musical cues from other John Liu films to try and, match the tone and whatnot. And it, if I didn't know, I would have just assumed, oh, okay, maybe they got the score right, because it just, fits really well with the movie.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate it a lot. I remember as the movie was getting to its low points, I was thinking, man, this is boring, but I'm digging the music. So I don't know. I don't know. What else is there to say? I don't know. Am I missing any key points before we wrap this up, Zero?
I think we covered about most of it. Like you mentioned, this borders on so bad it's good. I wouldn't say that though, because I don't, this is I think this is a competently made film, but I think there are really campy, cheesy things going on in the script that make us laugh at it, right? There's nothing going on where things are just outright missing, or they need to, I don't know, hide somebody with a wig and the wig falls off, or they need to put somebody out with a blanket who's on fire.
You are just quoting Samurai Cop right now.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. The so bad it's good factor isn't all there, so I can't recommend it entirely on that front. But at the same time, the martial arts is okay. That'd be a flat out lie. It's not that great. But I mean, if you kind of just want to put something on, I don't want to recommend something just for the sake of recommending it. how about I backpedal and say that? Like, I say go check this movie out anyways. The martial arts isn't that great, but I think that, you know, it's an extremely valiant effort that Vinegar Syndrome did to restore this movie. And you can see John Liu's, you know, like there's like potential here, but behind the whole film. But yeah, like there's still some fun to be had in this movie. Like I still had a generally good time watching the movie and enjoying the camp factor. It's not so bad it's good enough for me. But if you're not a fan of So Bad It's Good anyways, yeah, I think you could just skip this. But go support the movie if you are a big fan of film preservation, because I think that's like, I'm a big proponent of something like that. So, I don't know, Zero.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we kind of glazed over, or at least I glazed over, is as picky as we were with some of the aspects of this film, I really enjoyed watching it with you. I had a blast. I thought it was really fun. We didn't know what to expect. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. And it's one of those things where knowing the history behind it and how they need to restore it, this could have just been a really boring film, right? They could have put together something and ultimately it could have just been something that put you to sleep. Yeah. Thankfully, it's very entertaining, very campy. As I've said many, many times, it's not so bad it's good, but it feels like a silly 80s film. And if you like those kind of movies, I think this is perfect for that. So I do recommend the film. And I think Vinegar Syndrome did a good job. I'm wondering if there will be any more like features or stuff. I'm sure when they ultimately release it on DVD, like because that 49, I think it's like a 50-minute like documentary is even a good watch too, like because they coupled it together. Yeah. So I'm hoping there's like maybe even more deleted scenes that they just felt were unnecessary to add in, or just like, you know, anything they can. Right.
Well, I mean, one thing that the documentary did get me interested in or curious about is watching some John Liu movies. Maybe we'll put that on the list one day. So they definitely talked him up as if like he did a whole bunch of, you know, like much better martial arts, you know, films back in Hong Kong. So I'd be curious to check those movies out. I think he referenced Secret Rivals as one movie. I've already seen Invincible Armor. I don't remember it too much. So I don't know. Maybe John Liu is... Maybe we'll do a John Liu month one day.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
John Liu Lai? July?
Oh, you're trying to make a pun with his name?
I'm trying. All right. Don't. We'll think of something.
John Liu.
John Liu. John Liu.
Oh God, no.
We're not drunk enough for this.
No, we're not. We'll think of something.
Stay tuned.